Hi y'all, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of problem solving at a family's home. First I want to show you this beautiful terrace garden they have here. This is a 20-year-old garden. They've been living in this home over 20 years, and there's some really established plants, shrubs, and perennial alike in this space. Let's take a quick look and then we're going to get started on planting a FlowerFull hydrangea hedge. So there's some beautiful iris right here. These are real tiny. And then we have some oak leaf hydrangeas up there, which get really massive and have beautiful blooms on them later in this late spring or summer. Huge hostas here. Some nice perennial geranium. I just really love this space. So it's a part sun, part shade space, and it's going to be perfect for the hydrangeas we're planting today. You can see this area is entering some sun now, so we're going to try and get my project done before the sun gets over here. So the space that was of issue is right here. So last year they had their landscapers come through and pull out some hydrangea 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 here that were also known as big leaf hydrangea. They were not working in this space. They were not blooming well. And here in Southwest Ohio, we have and tend to have that problem often. Since this garden is so old, they were probably an old variety that did not rebloom reliably here. And there's a lot of new ones on the market by Endless Summer, which is a sister brand to First Editions as well, that rebloom more reliably here, which I'm doing some trials on. Now, these are FlowerFull hydrangea. They're a brand new arborescence smooth hydrangea to the market this year. They are supposed to have 2 to 3 times as many blooms as other arborescents on the market. And what's known about them most is they have really strong stems. So if you're familiar with arborescence hydrangea or smooth hydrangea, they can flop when it rains or you have a storm or the blooms just get too big. So these get roughly 3 to 4 foot tall and 4 to 5 foot wide. Can take full sun to part shade. I don't typically recommend them in full sun unless you're going to have them on some type of regular irrigation because they will probably burn. But if you can give them enough established years of growth, then they do much better in full sun. So if you're willing to risk it and give them irrigation, you can definitely put them in more of a full sun location. I have some of these on my property that will definitely be getting full sun, so we'll be trying that out. But here it's meant to solve a problem of just providing some beautiful white blooms. I've got them spaced about 40 inches from the house. So when you're considering a hedge along your house, you want to consider how wide the hydrangeas get. Like I said, these get 4 to 5 foot wide. So it's plenty of space where they're not going to necessarily touch the house. Hydrangeas also have shallow roots, shallow fibrous roots. So there's no concern about them interfering with the foundation of the house or anything like that. And when you're spacing a hedge, you need to give thought to the spacing recommendations of the shrubs. So these say 4 to 5 foot wide. That means on center. That does not mean 4 foot from each edge of the container. So if 4 foot is in the center, it's 2 feet this way and 2 feet that way. So that means that these hydrangeas will form a nice, solid, continuous hedge. I placed them about 3 feet apart, so 36 inches. So it's 12 feet total in length. You can see the tape measure I have laid out here, and I've put it at the center of the pot. And then we have 3 feet, 6 feet, 9 feet. So this is a little off. And then 12 feet is the center of the last one here. That kind of meets the edge of this, kind of mirrors where these spirea are. Here comes a little across where that wall ends and looks nice and will grow in around this tree. So spacing for hedges is sometimes personal taste. You definitely want to take the tag into consideration. You may want more openness between the shrubs to allow more airflow. That's perfectly fine as well. In my case, we want this to be kind of a continuous solid hedge. So something about smooth hydrangea or hydrangea arborescence is they do clump at the base. So unlike Hydrangea 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗃, which grows on a stem, they clump like perennials do. And so they will get wider over time and fill in nicely. So you can plant them a little wider apart, but you're going to be trading those years of growth for instant results, planting them a little closer. You could technically plant these probably a little closer, maybe 2 to 2.5 feet apart. But I don't want to crowd them too much because these will get pretty large pretty quickly. So we're just going to get started today. I have my auger. I have some Hollytone for some good organic fertilizer that I'll be adding to the planting hole. And once the hydrangea is planted, I have some 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲, which is a slow release fertilizer that will feed these the rest of the spring. It's kind of similar to what nurseries use in the containers. Or the cans at the nurseries. You may see the blue pellets in the top of containers when you plant them, or the yellow pellets. This is very similar to that. So it'll feed them for the rest of this season here in Ohio, and then next season they can be fertilized fresh with some nice fertilizer. So I'm going to set the camera down. I'm going to pull these hydrangeas away from where they're at, and we're going to get the holes dug and planted. I've pre-pulled a little bit of the mulch away from the plants so I can cover the area up with some mulch at the end of it. All right, and that is it. You almost can't tell I was here, which is the way I like it. So this is, as I mentioned, FlowerFull hydrangea. Let me show you a picture. I'll put a picture on the screen as well. But this is the blooms that it produces. It's just really covered with blooms. I saw these last year at Bailey. Really incredible variety. So as I mentioned, I got these planted, and then I noticed it visually did not look right to me, and I went up and inspected, and 2 of these hydrangeas, this one and this one, were not planted in the center of the can when they were transplanted into their bigger containers. And so that's something you want to watch out for when you're creating a hedge as well. I had to dig those up, kind of rotate them, dig the hole a little more to the left or the right, and then get them situated. So now they're perfectly more 3 feet apart from each other, and visually to me more correct than they were originally when I planted them. Something else I want to mention, you may have noticed when I was digging these that the auger was having a hard time. It hit really hard clay. So when I started digging in the soil, I was like, well, this looks familiar. Here in Southwest Ohio, oftentimes we can have really heavy clay soil. And it was like super hard. I'll put a video on the screen of what I ended up running into, and I ended up getting the shovel out and digging that a little further. But because of that, I planted these an inch or so high from the ground. That way, if there's any type of irrigation runoff issues, so the hole's not holding water when it gets watered. That's something, a tip, if you have heavy clay soil, maybe plant your plants inch or so high on the ground. Some plants like that anyway, like butterfly bushes. But in this case, I just planted them a couple inches high because I hit that really hard clay soil and I was afraid it wasn't going to drain well. Hydrangeas, although they do like water and they like to have moist soil, they do not like to sit in water. So they like to get a lot of water, let it drain, dry out just a tiny bit, and then more water. So sitting in water is never a good idea, and I have killed a couple hydrangeas. If you've been following along long enough, you know that. Thank y'all for following along for this video. I hope you learned some tips and tricks, and stay tuned. I'll follow up on this later in the year. Take care, and remember, be a light. Bye.